government policy advisor to the United Kingdom, to a YouTube content creator. You know, the usual path. Content creation. Why do we do it? How do we do it? Is it worth doing? Well, that's what YouTube Confidential is all about. Whether you're a fan or a fellow content creator or like myself, both, you're going to love this segment. I've never been more excited for a guest than I have been for this one. This is Robert, the creator of Deep Geek. If you guys are a follower of mine, you are probably familiar with his work. So let's jump into it. And also make sure to subscribe. I'm only 80 away from hitting the quota for the new YouTube Partner Program. Thomas. This is a YouTube Confidential where we talk to content creators about the process, about how they go about making content on YouTube, and what it all means. Today, I'm joined by Deep Geek. Robert. Deep Geek is his alias online. He has been on YouTube for about a year. He boasts 17,119 subscribers at the time of this video's recording, with only 134 videos. And I really wanted to have Robert in for a while now, and I've wanted to work with Robert for a while now because he does something that I always have tried to do. He talks about Game of Thrones, yes. He talks about Westworld, yes. He talks about a lot of different properties, but it's not what he's talking about. It's the way he's talking about it. If you guys watch this series, you would know I have an issue with people that are just talking about how great they thought something was, which is fine. But what I always say is, if you just thought was something great and don't really have any type of breakdown or analysis or anything further to talk about, just thumbs up another video, or, you know, do a cinema score or something outside the theater. Don't make a YouTube video. What you should be doing is adding to the enjoyment and letting the viewers learn a little bit more than they knew before they watched your video. And Robert, you do that so well. You break down narratives. You talk about all the different tropes that are in all these shows that we like, and you identify what they are. So the people that might not be as, interested in the technical aspect of storytelling and like that, and they like a show for a certain reason, you can help bring out what that reason is to them. And it's just an excellent way to go about things. And why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how you got into this, what you were doing before, and when did you become a full-time YouTuber?
Well, first of all, can I just say thank you? Thank you for having me on. I've seen the show before. It's a great format you've got going on here. So thank you. It's a great idea of just being able to talk through the process of creation, not just talking about Game of Thrones or Westworld, but how do we actually go about making this content. In terms of my backstory, I've been doing this for just over a year now. Before that, I had a job that was pretty much nothing to do with videos, with YouTube or anything. I was a policy advisor to the UK government on a range of domestic policy. Would be working on, say, housing policy or local government policy to advise the ministers, the elected politicians, on how they should be delivering policies. So that was my role.
And then Game of Thrones or Westworld never came up in that job. It seems like they go hand in hand. And that's what I got. I'm like, that makes sense. He was an advisor to the UK government. Now he's a YouTuber. I'm like, pretty lateral move. You know what I mean? Like, pretty much the same job, right? I mean, like, at what point did you go from it being a hobby? I'm assuming that this probably was some sort of release for you, since you are so creative. Was it kind of just more of an outlet? When did it change from being an outlet to being your full-time gig?
I mean, it definitely is. It's a different way of doing things. And I certainly there's a degree of creativity that I couldn't use so much in my previous career that I can here. One thing I would just want to say is that I want this to be actually something, an encouragement to people, that you probably don't realize quite how many skills you have that you could use. I came into this, I've got no technical skills whatsoever. Video editing isn't my thing. I don't really know. I had to learn everything from scratch in terms of the technical stuff. What I can do is analyze information, break down stuff, and then tell it. That's my skill set. So don't feel you have to be an expert of videos to get into being a YouTuber. That's just not true. That said, you were asking about the sort of the journey to how this became sort of something I was taking more seriously. I started, as I say, just over a year ago, and I think to start with, it was a fun outlet. It was an interesting thing to do. It was something that I felt that I could add some value in, and it was really sometime around last spring that it started turning into something I thought, you know what, actually this is something that I could turn into a business, not just being a YouTuber, but owning a business, an online business that uses YouTube and a number of other things. And then it's really just in the last few months that I've actually started to turn that, to take this seriously and turn that actually into a proper business that I'm running effectively full time.
I like how you said you put your videos on YouTube, but you're building a business. And that's the way I like to look at it as well, is that really the product is yourself. You're branding yourself. YouTube, it just lets us upload our videos essentially. And like you said, you don't have to be an expert in digital production or VFX or anything, to do this. Truth be told, I have a background in that. I went to school for that, and I went to school for acting and stuff like that. Now, granted, I had to relearn a lot of my editing skills because I used to work on an Avid, the old school way of editing and stuff like that. Wow, that's probably shouldn't say old school way. I wasn't chopping up film with scissors, but anyways, I do have the technical skills, and I'm growing and stuff like that. But it used to really get to me at first when I would then make this video that I put all this time into the editing of, and it was very elaborate. And then somebody with terrible audio that couldn't read so well had 1 million views. But it really is a whole different monster. And like you said, you took what you knew and you put it into your work, and you weren't worried about being the best video editor or sound designer. You put yourself out there, and that's what it takes. And that's what's beautiful about the platform. It's a stage that everybody is allowed on, but it's such a hard stage to stay on because it keeps trying to buck you with the algorithm changing, with how oversaturated it can be. And like I said, there's a stigma about being called a YouTuber. Do you feel that's a fair thing to say, that there is a little bit of negativity that comes along with that name? And do you refer to yourself as a YouTuber, or do people in your life refer to you as a YouTuber, like the Prime Minister of England?
I think I don't think of myself as a YouTuber. I think of myself as a business owner. I think of myself as an online entrepreneur, if you like. I think that sounds quite pretentious, but that's what I do. And the reason is that in a year or two's time, I'm pretty focused that YouTube is just going to be one of many income streams and one of many places that I will be on. So just to take Patreon for an example, I think a lot of people seem to treat it just as this is a way I can make a little bit of extra cash. But for me, one thing that I do through Patreon is I do audio narrations for my patrons. So I read stuff. And that, I think, is certainly something I'm wanting to be getting into more over time. And so I see that very much. It's yes, it's a way for people to support me, but it's also a way for me to be providing a product to people that they want. As for YouTuber, I think it's an interesting generational thing. My dad has got no idea what a YouTuber is, absolutely no idea. So it will mean absolutely nothing to him. To younger people, YouTubers mean PewDiePie or Logan Paul. And yes, they will probably have some negative connotations of what that actually means, but it's a shortcut. And so when I meet someone random, they ask what I do, and I say I've got an online business. I then say, so I've got a YouTube channel, and they go, oh, you're a YouTuber. And rather than squirming and saying, no, I'm not a YouTuber, I embrace it. You have to embrace it. You have to say that is what someone who puts videos onto YouTube is called. It's not all that I do. It's part of my business. But yeah, I am a YouTuber.
My name is Justin, and I'm a YouTuber. It's not pretentious to say that, you're an online entrepreneur, and you're exactly right about Patreon and stuff. And I started a Patreon. Thank you, PC Gamer, my first Patreon. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's wonderful to support the arts in many different ways, whether it's donating to your school system or whatnot. But I think that so many people depend on, and I've talked about this before, YouTube. Just the base way to make money off YouTube is to collect your your money from the ad rev and to try to get Patreon. Business 101, control your revenue streams. You have no control over those, and apocalypse can happen. So every time Logan Paul shows a dead person on there, or every time somebody does some sick shit with the kids' YouTube, we end up having lower ad rates or no ads at all. So in a Patreon, God bless everybody that donates, and it's great to support us, but that can also be taken away at a moment's notice. You don't have a contract. YouTube, if you don't insulate yourself in an actual sensible way, in a way that a real business was, that means going out and getting your own brand deals, branding yourself as a product, and making sure that if YouTube shut down tomorrow, you could go to another service or just host a website and upload your videos and maintain a good amount of your base. They're becoming just lazy because YouTube is business for dummies. It's what's your CPM? That's not your decision. You know what I mean? They demonetize anything. They demonetize stuff for no reason because it's an algorithm. Patreon is a donation service, and I think you, and we'll talk about it later, some really creative perks that you give. Some people do it better than others, obviously, but again, YouTube is not what makes us. Now, this is YouTube Confidential, so we talk about what it means to be a content creator, but content creation can happen without YouTube. It would be a hell of a lot harder, and I hope that there will be some competition that is feasible to actually go over to, because they have a structure that would allow us to make money. But competition's coming. Yeah, that's great that you took that leap, went all the way with it, because it got to be a scary thing to do. I mean, did you ever think that you would have 17,000 subs in just over a year?
I don't think I set myself targets. I do now set myself targets, but I don't think I did then. I went into it with self-belief, because I think you have to go into all of these kinds of things with self-belief. And I believed that I had the skills and I had the nous that would allow me to be a success in doing this. As is always the way, I completely underestimated all of the different things that I needed to learn and do, and I'm still learning. I went into it with a strong belief that I could build a big enough following that it would be sustainable as a career.
That's awesome, man. So what is it like for you, for Robert, for Deep Geek, every day as a content creator? What is the process from conception of an idea to the execution of it? Do you have a structure where you wake up every day at a certain time, you go and search for whatever your focus is going to be, and then you spend so many hours doing this or that? Are you like me, that's like, this might be a good idea, I'll spend 3 weeks on it, or this might be a good idea, I'll spend 10 minutes on it? Not the best business plan, but you seem to be more of a structured person. I could be wrong though. I'm trying to put you in a box here. You come off to me as probably somebody that, is more structured in their approach, but I'll let you say what you do, not me.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the outside, it would probably look like I'm not very structured, to be honest. I've got, at any given time, I've got 6 or 7 videos that I'm working on at various stages, from just thinking about the idea to putting the finishing touches to. I don't just start at one, work my way through it, finish it, put it online, then start the next one. That's not the way that I can work. My brain dots about all over the place. It's really frustrating. But the general approach that I have is almost always start with a question. It has to be something that I don't understand, something that I want to get to grips with, something that I feel that I am making a video in a way for me, because I think that the people who watch my videos, they're clever people, they're engaged people. They don't want to just be talked down to. They want somebody to actually get into the detail, do the hard work for them, and then present it in an engaging way. So it starts for me with the question, which so to take a recent example of something I did a video where the question actually ended up being the title of the video. Very rarely does, to be honest, but on this one occasion it did, which was what's going on with Melisandre. It's a very Game of Thronesy kind of thing, and that came from the fact that I'd just been rereading some of the books, and a few weird things came out where we learn she doesn't sleep, and we learn that she doesn't eat. So she has to get her energy from somewhere. And then there's the stuff we know already about the fact that she's supernaturally old and that she doesn't feel the cold. And somewhere in the back of my brain is this question. So what's going on? You're
almost like a doctor. You're like, well, her cholesterol has to be terrible.
Yeah. Martin, he's a clever guy. He doesn't just drop these things in just for no reason. So from that, I then went off and I started investigating. I looked a bit more into her background. I found a great quote from George R.R. Martin when he said, when he was asked who's the most misunderstood character in the Song of Ice and Fire, and he said Melisandre. And I just thought, whoa, okay, so there's a lot of misunderstood characters, but she is the most. It's not just that we get her slightly wrong; we get her a lot wrong. And so I went and I just followed my brain process through trying to figure out what it was that was going on. And if you want to find out what I think, then by all means go and have a look at the video. But the process then is having reached something where I feel that I understand it. And I know when I understand something by when I can explain it to someone, because until you can explain something to someone, you do not personally understand it. And then at that point, the second bit of the creative process for me is how do I turn this into something that is interesting and engaging? And sometimes that's taking people through the same brain process that I've done, and that occasion it actually was. Sometimes it's coming from a completely different angle. So, for example, I've done a series, and there's going to be a few more coming online soon. The Traveler's Guide to Westeros, which was an attempt to get away from just this normal coming up with theories about stuff in Game of Thrones, and actually trying to get into the idea of what's it actually like to be in a place. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And so the second bit of the process is how do you frame this information in a way that people will engage?
I want to talk more about that Westeros Traveler's Guide in a moment, because at that point, but I want to go back over what you said, because I love that answer, and that actually made some things admittedly click in my head. Usually what a lot of people do, and what I do a lot, admittedly, is I will answer a question in a video that I already knew the answer to, but I'm trying to figure out what people would want to hear about, what they'd want to watch a video about. You literally are making a video just documenting the process of you figuring this out, because you've obviously built yourself a nice base. So you figure, hey, if I'm wondering in a Jerry Seinfeld type of way, what's the deal with Melisandre? A good portion of your base is going to be wondering what's going on with Melisandre. So you don't just go and say, well, what are things I know? And I can tell people, like the Look How Much I Fucking Know show. You take the process that you legitimately don't know what's going on. And you're so right about George. A lot of writers do this, but George is great. You're probably familiar. Chekhov's gun. It's the rule of, in the first act, you put the gun on the wall, and if they don't use it by the third act, then it was never should have been mentioned. You know what I mean? It's not proper storytelling. Usually it'll be established dialogue about putting the gun up there, and then you'll be reminded of it, and then by the third act, somebody should be shot. with that gun. That gun should be used. And it's amazing too, because a misunderstood character, because maybe it frustrates him because he's like, they're not getting it. You know what I mean? Maybe George actually thought, he's like, well, I thought I was pretty clear on this, because I mean, come on, how deceptive is this guy? But he's mad. He's like, I just don't seem to get it. So I really think that that's a excellent way to go about content creation. You're engaging in the literature and the television series that you love so much, and you're figuring out stuff that you probably would have done by yourself, and you're figuring out a way to share that with people so they can enjoy it. So like what I'm getting is, you conceive the idea by thinking about not what necessarily the people that watch your videos want to know about, but what you want to know about, because you understand that they most likely go hand in hand. And then your process is your research. You're looking through the books. You're finding things to support certain theories, blah, blah, blah. And then is how do you market it?
I mean, I think the marketing is, for me, it's sort of the last bit. So, I mean, there's the coming up with the idea. There's the how do you frame it in a good way. Then there's the sort of the technical bit of actually putting it all together and choosing. I mean, I use pictures rather than video clips, but how do you actually like get the right pictures that actually match up with what you're talking? That kind of business. Then you get the final bit, which is the marketing. Is how do you actually create a thumbnail that people might want to click on, which is a thing that I've developed my understanding of over time, and I'm sure I will continue to develop it. It's not just putting the same title written on a thumbnail. It might be something completely different. And then it's the how do you actually get people wanting to watch this? How do you use Twitter and Instagram and everything else? So that sort of marketing is like the final bit of it.
Yeah, I guess I was, I probably should let you finish. But yeah, you were talking about formatting it. You were formatting, and then you go into your marketing. So when you're talking about how you're going to frame it. So yeah, I mean, and that definitely totally makes sense. I do notice, as far as your marketing goes, that you do something that I'm a part of an MZ, and I'm partnered with BB TV, Broadband TV, and they had a suggestion for me to format all my thumbnails to be, similar, so people could recognize when the videos are mine. And I've been them a lot of different college courses. I've had more runs in college than some people had in NAM. But, I went for marketing for a little bit, and I do understand that is technically correct, in that you should build an identity, brand yourself, and so people recognize your work. I like to get pretty creative with my thumbnails, and even though I'm not a graphic artist, sometimes a little too ambitious, but I do notice that yours are all same font. That same font. Is that a conscious decision that you make, or do you just like the way that it looks? I think that it's a nice, I guess you'd call it a compromise from completely to making them all look exactly alike, but you do use that same cursive.
Yeah. I mean, it's the art of the thumbnail is to get people to want to click on it. And there are people who have no idea who I am and what I do, who will click on it if they think that it looks like an interesting thing. And there are people who do know what I do and value what I do, and I need to catch their attention when they're just scrolling through all these videos on their feed. And the way, and I think you said it earlier, but the way to do that is to have some element of consistency. So I've got the same font, I've got the same color, and I use yellow not just because I like yellow, but because it's quite eye-catching, and it stands out against most things. So at some point I will change that. At some point in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be launching a slightly more professional branding look, so that may well go into the change into the thumbnails. But yeah, absolutely. The idea is to get as consistent as possible, whilst still being interesting enough for people to want to click on it.
Yeah, the people that don't watch it all the time. And that's why I always wanted to, the one thing I never did study was calligraphy. And I do know that certain fonts, are technically supposed to be used for certain things, and they do mean certain things. I do feel just from an aesthetic aspect that that font is very telling of your work, and it suits your work because it's elegant and it's not too harsh or brash. It's not like, check out this video, it's going to be the hypest thing ever, spoilers, plot leak, Game of Thrones explained, the answers you all been. It's a little bit of subtlety and class, and I think it's done well. I think it does fit your work. So I definitely am glad to hear that was a conscious choice. The green or whatever, yeah, green and yellow, I mean, gas station sign colors, so that is what you're supposed to use. But I think that people would maybe be a little bit more interested in knowing that there's so many aspects to this game, like you said, that you feel comfortable, talking about stories and breaking down stories, analyzing television shows, movies, blah, blah, blah. But you weren't a video editor. You weren't somebody that was familiar with audio equipment, at least at a professional level. But you do have to be a jack of all trades, and it does make you learn these, skills, which is great. Obviously, it'd be awesome to be good at them all right away, but that's not how life works. And essentially, when you run a YouTube channel, you're doing the job of at least 6 to 12 people easily. That would be in a studio, especially once you start doing live streams and stuff like that, or vlogs or anything, you're dealing with a lot of different stuff. So I think it's, it's rare that you get somebody that's, just got one thing that they're really good at, like breaking down stories, and then, they're able to excel and succeed in this area that is so saturated. And that's something I want to get into in a little bit about, the oversaturation of especially stuff like the Game of Thrones videos and other popular content. But basically, when you're making your content and you're thinking about what you want to do, are you looking to more, and obviously you want to do both, but is it more important to you to inform the viewer, or is it more important to entertain? And obviously you want to do both, but if you had to choose to make an entertaining video or an informative video, which one do you go with? What is more important for you? Because this is a job. This is something that you can't spend time making a video that isn't going to do well, because it's already hard enough. So, anybody that says that, oh, they just make whatever they want to make is just either incredibly lucky and is really intuitive and just can, guess everything correctly about what people want, and it happens to be what they want, or they're lying. So I'd like to know from you. You seem like an honest guy, because you did work for the government, but you quit to take a more, honest job, a YouTuber. So I'd like to know that if I put you in I'm going to put you in a few hypotheticals. This is
okay. So I'm going to start with the thing I'm going to say, because everyone's going to say that the two are not mutually exclusive. But you put me in a room. It has to be entertaining. That's the fundamental thing, is that you can for me, being informative is entertaining, so that's why I don't think the two are apart. But the fact is, we live in a world, particularly online, where if people get bored, they just click away. Yeah. You cannot if you're doing something which has got huge amounts of interesting information, but you're presenting it in a very dull way, people will click away. If you're doing something which is marvelously entertaining, it's not telling anyone anything. We could all think of examples of things that, they're guilty pleasures. We like them. So if I had to, then yes. But personally, I don't think that I naturally produce stuff that is sort of entertainment froth. I naturally, instinctively produce quite informative things that I hope are done in an entertaining way, or in an engaging way, I prefer, rather than entertaining. Entertaining sounds like I'm doing a song and dance, trying to keep you happy all the time. I want you engaged. There's I can't remember honestly where I heard this, but there's two different ways at the moment as current theory on how to consume media. There's the lean back and there's the lean forward. if you've got lean back, it's just you're just letting it wash over you. If it's leaning forward, you're paying close attention to it.
Yeah.
And I think that what I do most of the time is the lean forward stuff. I'm trying to draw people in. They're actually paying attention to what I'm saying, the information they're doing, and I'm engaging them. They're not just lying back and letting it wash over them.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, obviously, you don't have to ever choose between one or the other. I guess like the only example I can think of here, because I'm just trying to give you some hard questions here, and like you can do a video about Clegane Bowl and just maybe do it as a live stream, so you and everybody can talk about who would bash others' heads better. Are you gonna talk about what the White Walkers want, what the psychology behind them is, or something a little bit more informative, so they can walk away with knowing something that they didn't know before, not just knowing that it'd be cool to see a head bashed in.
Absolutely, but I think the thing on Clegane Bowl is that the problem is that this has been turned into it's a frothy little thing to say Clegane Bowl. What actually, when I would approach that, I don't approach it from that direction. I look at the character arc of the Hound of Sandor Clegane. I don't think that is in any way kind of frothy or anything like that. That's actually one of the most interesting character arcs, and it looks like he has to end up, in terms of general narrative arc, with some kind of, for him to get some fulfillment, with him to have some kind of confrontation with his brother. Now, the problem is that gets called Clegane Bowl. What I think of that as being good and interesting and engaging storytelling.
Yeah, I guess the way I should have phrased it is it's not the topic, it's the way that they would choose to talk about the topic. Like you just discussed it in a way that is informative. And there's a lot of different ways to look at that story arc. Is he on a path to redemption? Yes. Does redemption actually necessitate him to confront his brother? Maybe, since his brother was such a large factor in, I believe, his actions that he's ashamed of in the past, is it redemption? Is it a win for him to to let that go? I know it's not as entertaining, but to walk away and not hurt his brother as his brother hurt him, because it's, what is it, an eye for an eye? There's a lot of different ways. I definitely think that the confrontation is gonna arise eventually, but is that his defining moment? I think that his defining moment is where he can finally live a life of peace, but can he only get there through violence? It's a lot of different. I don't know if him physically attacking his brother is necessary for him to achieve his redemption. But there's,
I could talk about this for a long time. I don't think, when I say confrontation, I don't think that necessarily means fight. Yeah. I think that he needs to face his inner demons, as it were. And I think that the most logical way for that to happen is for him to face up to what happened to him as a child.
The struggle within, which, obviously George just loves. What is frothy? I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, sorry, it's probably an English phrase. It's like if you imagine you have like a cappuccino and you get the top with all the froth. Mm-hmm. It's just a whole. It might be tasty, but it's got no substance.
It's fancy ass English fucking slang. Don't come on my show being all sophisticated. What does it look like? You can put it to a percentage of your business versus creative when deciding, how to go about a video. What weighs in more? This is kind of a follow up on that. Is it 60% creative, 40% business? Because obviously you need to talk about relevant issues, and you might have a hankering to talk about something that's not, let's say, in season. Do you ever struggle with that? Do you ever struggle with to make something that is going to most likely get more likes, but isn't going to be as fulfilling for you on a creative level?
I have to admit, I don't struggle with this huge amounts. And in answer to like the percentages, I view it a slightly different way. Like a two-stage process is that I have decided to box myself in as a business perspective. to box myself in to say, at the moment, I make Game of Thrones videos, I make Westworld videos. That's what I do. In the past, I've done some on Sherlock. I did a couple on Doctor Who. In the future, I will do stuff on other things as well. But right now, I am focusing in on 2 issues. That is my business decision. And then after that, it's 100% creative of what I think I want to be doing. And I have found that the people who follow me, the people who support me on Patreon, they trust me to be producing the content that they like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that you have a really nice balanced way to go about it. And for me, a lot of times is, since I think I approach it in a similar way, because I've always been somebody that likes being on stage. I've always, done things like acting. And there's a part of, for some entertainers, because I would consider myself to be an entertainer, that you get, your fulfillment entertaining people, making them happy. So it's not like I feel like I'm sacrificing something to go for a topic, becoming just complacent and a little bit bored if you're asking yourself questions and you're going through the process, because that has to be so much more fulfilling than just, well, this is what things do I know about that there hasn't been a video on lately. Okay.
Yeah. And it means that I have this, and when I was saying I have like 5 or 6 videos on the go at any one time, I've also got half a dozen other thoughts just in my head of future videos, because there are questions in my head, the things that I want to look at. I have not yet got completely clear in my mind what's going on with the White Walkers, where they're going, what they want. I have not got completely clear in my mind about what Bran is up to and what his role is going to be in the end game. And those are questions that at some point lead to becoming videos. And so as I'm answering my own questions, it's that for as long as those questions keep on arising, I've always got this production line of new videos that I can be producing.
I'm all with you on projects that have been sidelined and are, just waiting to be brought back from the dead. I think that that's part of the creative process, and something that creatives definitely struggle with is finishing projects. Like Da Vinci was never known to finish a commission, but whatever. That's going to bring us to our next thing. A lot of people, and it's kind of in my opinion, a douchey question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What does creative mean to you? Because it is a term that's kind of just thrown around, and, oh, he's a creative type, or, ooh, that creative outlet. What does creative mean to you? Do you consider yourself a creative person, which I'm sure you do, but more importantly, what does it really mean to you?
I think creative is one of those terms that we can easily create some kind of mystique about. In my view, every human being is creative. We may or may not think of ourselves as being creative, but people like growing plants. That's a creative thing. People like painting. People like making models. People like having children. That's an act of creation. I think it's something inbuilt within the human spirit that we like to create things. We don't like to just sit around and just like consume. We want to actually create things. So I think that's as a general thing, humans are creative people. Now, some people, and I would count myself among them, I'm sure you would too, see this as something which is a great drive that we then want to take on into not just like something we do on the side, but something that is an essential part of our life, and perhaps how we earn our living and what we spend our time doing. So I think it's very easy to kind of like make it sound as if it's some amazing thing being a creative person, or is this person creative or not creative? Yeah. It's the real thing when people saying that, I think what they're actually meaning is originality. When we create stuff, there are loads of people who create stuff that is very similar to what other people create. what we often think of as being creative is actually the people who create things that are different, that are looking at things from a new angle, that make you think about things in a new way. That for me is the rarer thing.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It's just usually something that's, like you said, it's not, something that's new or anything, but they look at it in a different way. They can look at the big picture, and they can approach it in a different way, and step outside of the box. Like you said, they don't just consume. In this is really critical in content creation, in my opinion, because I think people think that it might be really easy to do these review videos and recap videos, but nothing is more intimidating for me than to do your most base, across the board recap and review of a television show, because the next day everybody comes out with them at the same damn time, and you feel like you're just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, and you all try to take a creative approach to it to make it different. But it's just finding those angles and being able to use them in a successful manner, change something in a unique way that results in something that's beautiful, or something that's at least entertaining and hopefully informative. I just think creativity is like, oh, I got to get my creative juices going. I got to I don't know how to think about all that. I just think that I've always looked at storytelling and I believe in a different way than most people look at it. I look at it as a amazing gift to be able to tell stories, and tell stories well, and provide people around you, whether you're doing it on YouTube or just with your family, with joy, and finding, like, a lot of people think there's only 7 different, stories to be told. You just tell them in different ways. So, to be able to find a way to tell a story that maybe everybody's heard to a point, when you break it down to its bare bones in an enjoyable way, is a gift. And, yeah, that's a creative person. But I agree that, most people that are on YouTube would have to be creative, but they also have to be insightful, and they also have to be intelligent. They also have to be detail oriented. It's just another form of intelligence. It's not across the board. I don't really like when people say, oh, he's a creative type. It's like, like I said, there's lots of different forms of creativity. I guess it's just what you use it for. For example, slime has been this crazy thing on YouTube that I just don't get. Look at the views on those videos. Millions and millions of views of people just creating slime. I guess that's creative, but is it really people that you believe to be like artists that are doing that, or people that just like see like an opportunity and seize it, compared to somebody that might analyze literature or, do their own web series? Is there any type of levels of quality within YouTube as a platform? Do you think that it takes the same amount of intelligence and creativity to make a slime video than it does to make a breakdown of Westworld?
Well, I mean, I don't look down on anyone for doing things, particularly stuff that I don't understand. I do not understand slime. I've got absolutely no idea what it takes to create a video to do whatever it is that they do. And similarly, I do not know what background people have when they're creating stuff. So I cannot judge other people's content. I mean, I don't think that's my role. I don't think that that's fair. I think what I can do is I can say what things I like, what things that I think are good art or add value or something like that. And I think those are the things that there are things on YouTube that are magnificent at what they do. And personally, I like to look at the stars rather than the gutter. I have to say, I think the public perception of YouTube is often about the lowest common denominator, and often, not always, but often, the people who have got the massive YouTube stars are massive YouTube stars because they were there at the beginning, not necessarily because of they're doing a thing particularly well. Some of them do, some of them perhaps don't. But what we have to do is I think we look at the whole thing and say, what is good, what is brilliant, and then we focus in on that rather than trying to judge where everyone else is.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the better way to put it is you hold some in a higher regard than others. I feel pretty comfortable at this point saying that because of people like Logan Paul, you know, your lowest common denominator happens to be the highest watched and subbed channels. And there's no class in what that guy does. And he just has millions upon millions of views on his videos immediately. And there's literally nothing he can do to lose those views. He rarely has a downtick. So, I mean, what is the correlation between these? Is it the drama, the controversy that leads people to them? Or is it just, what does that say about the people watching? What does that say about society? I guess not to take it to some huge, overly profound statement, but what does that say about, you know, the people that watch YouTube as a whole? That these people that are putting dead people in their videos, and these people that are disrespecting cultures on a regular basis are the top viewed people that literally just have to be like shut down by YouTube themselves, who are not even willing to do it until there's just a overwhelming demand for it by the fans, and it starts to affect the advertisers. I mean, people that have been there since the beginning, like you said, one of the only remainer ones, except for Jack's films, is Philip DeFranco, and he has taken a really positive turn for the better, in my opinion, and he has stuck around. But there's very few still left, and the people that are running the show now are the people that are unfortunately always in the news for terrible, terrible things.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I don't watch most, or if any, of the big YouTubers, I have to say. I mean, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about views about specific people. In terms of the lowest common denominator, yeah, I think looking at it one way, yes, it's a bit depressing that things that are going to our sort of baser, more simplistic bits of our brains are celebrated. Looked at another way, it shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, if you think about some incredibly erudite, philosophical, really cleverly written treatise that's put across on YouTube, it may be marvelous and brilliant and uplifting for the soul, and full of so many insights that sends you away and changes your life. But there is no way on this planet that is going to be one of the most watched things.
Yeah,
because most people do not want to sit down and watch life-changing stuff. Most people want to sit down and just watch something entertaining,
turn their brains off and watch it. And I mean, yeah, I mean, look before YouTube, Jerry Springer, these reality shows, Honey Boo Boo. These are not quality programs, and there's something about watching a dumpster fire that seems to be very entertaining. And I guess it is what it is. I guess that, it doesn't mean that the society is doomed, but it kind of brings me to my next point. Do you think that the content creators that are the most informed, we're talking about in our genre with the reviews, recaps, and breakdowns and analysis, the ones that are the most intelligent, the ones that are the, like best formatted, the best, final product, do you think that they are the ones that are most popular, or do you think that it's the people that just are for some reason ranking higher in search engines? Do you think the best of the best is at the top? Do you think that the scale is properly set, that the best people are at the top, the people that put in the best work are succeeding, and it is fair what everybody gets with views? Or do you think with the way YouTube is set up, with the algorithm constantly changing and it being pretty oversaturated, that there are people that fall within the cracks? Are you proud of the people that are at the very top of the tier of our genre? Are those the people that you think, yes, you're like, what, you look at them and you're like, absolutely, that makes sense that they're there?
I think that the amount of subscribers someone has, the amount of views they get, is a function of a lot of things. and it's a function of how long you've been on YouTube. Because frankly, if you've only been on YouTube for 3 months, then you haven't had the time to get all of these followers and all of these views. It's a function of whether you are doing things at the right time, which sometimes is entirely coincidental. So my channel doubled in size during the 7-week period of the last season of Game of Thrones. If I'd launched after that, then my channel would be a lot smaller. There are some people who have done videos that have just caught, for whatever reason, they've caught the imagination and that of people, and as a result, that has pushed that one up really well. There is also a function, I think, of how well people collaborate and market themselves, how well they understand SEO, and it's a function of quality. So to say, so the sort of question, am I proud of the people at the top? I think the people at the top have got there for a huge number of reasons, and it will have taken a huge amount of hard work. It will have taken a lot of time understanding how to market. It will have taken a lot of time understanding how to use the platform to its best, how to make their own voice. They will invested their own money doing this. So am I proud of them? Proud is probably the wrong word. I admire anyone who manages to get to the top of their niche, their craft. And so all of the people there who are getting like, you know, hundreds of thousands of views, I respect that. I can look at them and go, yes, that well done. Does that mean that I think that I personally value everybody according to where do I like the person who's got the most views the most? Do I like the person who's got the second most views the second most, and so on? No, that would be ridiculous. Of course,
you will
I don't.
follow suit with the hierarchy. All right, you will fall in line, Robert, and praise those who need to be praised. Yeah, I guess the better way to put it is, you know, do you think that it all adds up? Like you look at the, you know, highest views to the lowest views, and you're like, that's right. You know what I mean? Which obviously, like you said, there's going to be a lot of different variables because that go into it. And there's also the issue of having people come in and just having the algorithm change and pushing them and having them hit those subs. And there's that, I feel there's like this, it's like nobody wants to eat at a restaurant that has nobody in it. So, you know, like there's that lucky break with those subs that people are like, it's like they're validated. It's like, oh, this channel is validated, you know, and for our genre, I would say that validation starts around 7,000 subs, not 1,000. 5,000 is okay. But then it seems like a lot of people either once they hit a 7,000 mark, they'll either skyrocket or they plateau. I don't know what it is about that number, but I've seen this a lot when looking at other channels, and I don't know what it is about that number, and I don't have any statistics to back that up, but that is for instance, Gray Area. I believe when I did my YouTube Confidential with her, first off, a fantastic content creator, great person. I believe she was at either 5,000 or 7,000 when we first did our YouTube Confidential, and she's over 50,000 now. She hit that 7,000, then she shot like then they weren't small upticks, they were like large scale periods of growth, you know, in succession, you know, like very quickly. And I think that you just start to get on a roll. I think that, yeah, like you said, there's just so much that goes into it, and in every form of entertainment especially, there's always a certain amount of luck that plays into it. You know, they were at the right place at the right time, their agent heard about a casting or this or that. So, you know, there's always this like aspect of you have no control over 100%. So you just have to control 100% of whatever it is you can control. It's impossible to prove. There's a lot of great videos on what makes a viral video. It's, you know, there's always just, you can do this right, you can tag right, you can time right, but in the end, there's that blank little part in the process that is luck. And who knows why it goes big. You know, I could make a slime video maybe after this and get 1 million views, or it could get 2. I just don't know. I feel that it can be quite frustrating for people on this platform to look at who's doing well when they're not doing well. And I think it can be frustrating, and you seem to have a pretty positive outlook on it, and you've done what you've wanted to do so far, and you've experienced growth. And I don't see you slowing down, because you've taken what you've done and you've done it in a smart way. You haven't catered yourself to just one topic. And that's the hardest thing to do, especially in the specific genre that we're in, is you get known for one thing. But you're just not some huge fanboy. I think that's the big difference. I think you have a great understanding, like I said, of storytelling. And when it came to the technical issues, or with some of the other people, just like mine, there's always those people that, have better graphics, better voiceover, blah, blah, blah. But you were pretty green when it came to editing video, doing voiceovers. I mean, did you know much about that? Had you done any like presentations for work, or did you do anything in the past, any type of schooling that helped you in that area? Or you were pretty much just like a, virgin when it came to that?
Well, in terms of public speaking, yes, I've got some training and some experience in that. That bit I was very confident and happy with. Mm-hmm. In terms of video editing, I literally, I wasn't exaggerating earlier. I knew nothing. I decided I'm going to make a video. What shall I make a video about? I'm going to make a video about Tyrion, because he's my favorite character. How do I do that? And then I just I Googled, how do you make a video? Yeah. That's where I started. I literally knew nothing. And I really think it should be an encouragement for people who think, well, yeah, I've got the technical skills, but I've not got these skills. You don't need the whole package. You can learn stuff as you're going along. My technically, my videos, you're entirely right, and it's a very fair thing to say. They're not technically brilliant now, still, but they're miles better than they were when they started.
Oh yeah, and the reason I'm bringing it up,
in a year's time, they will be miles better again, because that's how it works.
And there's nothing wrong with your videos, and I never questioned your public speaking skills. I was giving credence to how well you did speak, and how much you knew about what you're talking about, and how clear that had to have been to gain your subscribers, because it's a credit to how well you understand what you're talking about and how well you present what you're talking about. Because back when you were doing it at a low technical level, people were still enjoying. And how people are on YouTube, and that's what I want to transition into, is the negativity. Was there ever some time that there was a viewer that you felt was, cruel, just very judgmental? They were watching the video and they were just looking for issues. And how do you deal with stuff like that?
Well, the answer is yes. In terms of the early videos, I think one thing I would say, I have always trusted the content, and I think that this is a thing that this is what has kept me going. Is that I think, for me, I believe that what I am putting to people is good enough that that they will come for what I am presenting, and the other stuff is just background to that. I think that's where I've been at. In terms of the sort of negative comments, I think I've always kind of viewed them in two categories. Some of them are actually trying to be helpful. They might say it in a slightly confrontational way, but they'll say, "I can't hear you. Did you record this in a bathroom?" And I'm very open.
That was me. That was me.
So, I'm very open and honest with some of my earlier videos on the sound quality. It was not great. And I actually took that as constructive criticism. Mm-hmm. I took that as, you know what? I didn't know anything. What I'm learning from this is that I need to get a better mic. And so I then went out and I got a better mic, and then I found that those comments stopped. And so that's the sort of the first one, is the ones that you need to swallow your pride. You need to bite back the natural human instinct to say, yeah, I'm doing a great job. Yeah, why are you just sniping at the side? You've not been. That's a natural human instinct, but on a lot of them, you just bite back. And I've actually found on that kind of comment, if you go back as a content creator and reply to that comment in a really open way and say, hi, thanks for the comment. Really sorry you didn't like the audio. I'm going to get a new mic. Hope you check out my videos again in a week or two. People often respond positively to that, and they say, "Hey, sorry, I realized I was a bit, a little bit sharp there. I was having a bad day."
Frothy, is that correct? Am I using it in the right context?
Nah, not quite yet. Well, you'll get there. You'll get there.
When in Rome.
When in Rome.
Yes.
Viewed as a professional.
Right. When in Rome.
But sometimes you just gotta look yourself in the mirror and say, when in Rome.
For how you deal with the stuff that's just vitriol, because there will be some. Now, don't get me wrong, 99.99% of all comments and interactions I've had doing this have been positive. There are so many nice people saying loving things, being really supportive, and that gets me through so many days. But there will be some small minority of things that actually really touch you. So as an example, I had one person for no reason that I could imagine who just said, I hope your kids get cancer. And it's like, where's that come from? It's like, it's just a comment intended to hurt me for no particular reason. And on that, all I can do is just say, okay, that is nothing to do with what I'm doing. That is a person who've got their own problems for whatever reason, and I delete the comment and I block the person and move on, because I can't give that comment any respect or any that kind of level of comment. But that is such a small minority of the amount of things that I personally get that I can deal with it. It's that it may be a bigger problem for other people.
That's just cruel. There's nothing you can do with that. And I don't even know if you have kids, but it doesn't matter. That's just a blatant attempt to hurt somebody, because they know it's the most hurtful, horrible thing. It's the whole outrage thing. Like I said, I don't remember the exact metaphor for the holster of dicks that I got, but I was able to cope with that one because I found it a little funny. I'm like, wow, this guy put a lot of work into this. It was like a paragraph long of this weird situation, but I find that, yes, if somebody attacks your family or they wish something that horrendous upon you, that is the only reason that you should ever delete a comment or block somebody. I do see, again, a lot of the top people in our genre that disable likes and disable comments. And I really think that kind of, doesn't go along with what this is all about. I keep the bad comments up unless there's something thank God I've never had anything like that said to me, up, because I feel it's important for other people to see that, because that, at least to me, implies that you are honest and you really are. Because I always say, I want to know your guys' opinion. So if they see that you're blocking people and you're disabling comments, do you really want to know their opinion? Obviously not. So, and when you put yourself on a stage, you're opening yourself up for criticism. But yeah, I agree. It is so inspiring when people, just for people that leave any type of comment, it means the world, because they're taking time to watch it. You hope they make that their day's better because of it. And, it makes your day better. So unless they're telling you to eat dicks or wishing diseases upon you. But if you were offered a more mainstream analyzing the latest episodes of a TV series and you had your own segment, would that be something you'd be interested in, or do you like the freedom of YouTube and being able to create what you want?
I think for the foreseeable future, I am in charge of my own time. This is what, at this particular point in my life, what I want is to be in charge of what I do and when. If a sort of a more mainstream media person came to me and said, "Can you come and do this?" I would try and do that within the boundaries that I've got. And be a freelancer for somebody is absolutely fine for me. What I don't think I want to do is go and do a 9-to-5 office job again. That's not where I'm at. But I think, for me, increasingly the world is getting to the point where YouTube is going to be the mainstream and things like that are going to be the mainstream. So actually it's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of something else. And I don't think that AMC should have any greater weight than a big podcast or a huge YouTube channel. If one of the massive YouTube channels asked me, hey, do you want to come on and do a spot here once a week and we'll pay you a certain amount of money, I would view that in the exact same way as if a network came to me with an offer.
And that's why I didn't offer you money to come on here to this huge
What? No money?
I didn't want to. I'm like, this is already a big honor for him. I don't want to, make him feel like, corporate shrill. Question earlier about, the levels of skill and who should be where. But I mean, what is more impressive, I guess, somebody that, like Chris Hardwick that gets that gig through AMC, through his business connections, and he is good at what he does, are the person that makes The Walking Dead after show on YouTube and competes with everybody else that's on there and succeeds, because there is just nothing but competition on here, and it's natural selection at its finest. I would argue that it's just as hard, to make it on YouTube than it would be to go the traditional route. But I see some opportunities for people that have managed to do it to help major networks transition. We already have the front page of YouTube covered with talk show hosts, which they're not YouTubers. I don't get how they're on the main videos. Conan, Stephen Colbert. It's like, I'm like, the people that are ahead of the game realize that this was the route to go. So hopefully it doesn't change too much, but I like to see that you still are running away. Do you think YouTube will be around in 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it will be different. And I think it'll be different in two ways. The first, I think, is perhaps not a welcome one for small creators, but I can see that it is going to get the monetized bit of YouTube is going to become increasingly professionalized. And it's going to get smaller and a smaller proportion of what there is. I could certainly see there being back to what there was actually at the very beginning of when they started up the partner program, of you get this small group of preferred partners who have got a large number of subscribers, and then this large wild west where anything goes, because YouTube's entire business model, as we know, it's all based on the advertising income, and everything that's been happening over the last year or so has been about them trying to protect their business model, trying to make sure that they can say to advertisers, you are safe putting your adverts in front of these videos. And they can hire loads of people to look at loads of different videos and decide whether or not they're fit. But that's actually not the best solution. And I think they know it's not the best solution, because a video's got to be uploaded and then people look at it, and it will be online for a while before people look at it. The way this is going to go is, I think, pretty inevitably that they're going to shrink more and more the amount of videos that they're putting adverts in front of as a default. Maybe they'll have two layers. We guarantee these ones are okay, and you can put videos on these other ones, but on your head be it. So that's the first thing, is that I think that the platform will change and it will become more professionalized. And as a part of that, then there will be people in 10 years' time. There will be people who have done this for 15 years, 20 years. They will be absolutely brilliant at it by then. I think there's only two people who can actually offer competition to YouTube as a platform. That's Facebook and Amazon. And I think there's signs that both of those are going to be doing it at some point, allowing paid content or monetized content through there. And I think both of those will start going down that route, and that will force YouTube away from its monopoly status into a more sort of comfortable oligopoly.
Yeah, some good old capitalism. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, and we've already seen this. And you just supported me and helping me to try to get to that 1K, because the YouTube partnership program has changed. And that's the second time within like 6 months. And what they're trying to do is, yes, because there is 400 hours of video uploaded every minute. They can't hire a human staff. They can't get, like real people to be like in charge of this stuff. That's why an algorithm has to run it. There's very few people that work for YouTube. So what they're trying to do is, it was first to 10,000 views, And I'm saying this when it's not even in my best interest, because obviously, like, I had the hours, which I actually almost have 100 hours over. You know, because you have to have 4,000 hours to qualify now, but you have to have the 1,000 subs. So I hit the hours, I didn't hit the subs. So hopefully I will. But to be honest, the 10,000 views, that wasn't that high of a bar. Even though this doesn't benefit me and I'm struggling to make the subs right now, it's still not that high of a bar. So my issue is I would almost rather, instead of being stuck with this new, like, stressful situation every other month, is for them to make the cut that they really need to make. Because I do believe in has done so far. And really quickly, probably a hard question to answer really quickly, what do you think the overall message and messages of Game of Thrones, both A Song of Ice and Fire and the television show to a lesser extent, are? Like, what do you think George wanted or wants, since he seems to not be writing the books too quickly anymore, for people to walk away with? Obviously, it's an anti-war story. Obviously, it's a story about the struggle within, and people finding who they are through all those relationships. Yes, they need to tie up those story arcs, but these walkers, we've seen them coming now since the first shot. We need to know why they came, and it can't just be to destruct if they want to stay true to what that story has done so far. And really quickly, what is he trying to say?
I think it's not. It's not reducible to a message. I think I always, when I'm thinking about these kind of things, I come back to a conversation. It might have been an exchange of letters between J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and they were talking about the difference between application, whether something's applicable or whether it's allegory. And Tolkien was quite dismissive of C.S. Lewis with the Narnia, saying this is just allegory for the Christian faith.
Yes.
And he much preferred the idea of application. And so the Lord of the Rings was this. He said that he's not trying to give a message through the Lord of the Rings, but there are loads of points that you can draw from it. You can draw points about the importance of working together. You can draw environmental points from it. You can draw points about when is the moment you need to actually stand up against evil. There's a whole load of points that you can draw from it, because it can be applied in different ways. And I think that is where George R.R. Martin is coming from. He's not trying to make a point. There will be some things which I think you're right, the futility of war will be quite clear. I think there's another one about the sort of equalities and the patriarchy that was clearly there all the way from the beginning, and that needing to be smashed down. But it's not going to be about driving home points. It's going to be about creating a story that messages from it, and critique of our own society from it, without him specifically saying this is the point, this is the message.
So it's not to wrap up these stories. How many season finales of series can you really say you were satisfied with? I think that it's going to be tough. And Dan and Dave, I am not a big fan, but they are taking some pretty harsh criticism. I wish them the best of luck in their next project, Confederate, which was just a fantastic decision. Used all their capital, what they built up with HBO, to do fucking a terrible premise at a terrible time, but whatever. I'm really hoping I won't be disappointed. 6 episodes is a little bit scary to think that they're going to wrap it up in that amount of time. And the one last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is what about your upbringing or your schooling? Because it seems like obviously you're working with the government before, gave you this gift of being able to analyze and break down stories and look at the bigger picture and really approach things in quite a academic way. And this is a quick follow-up, a twofer for you. Do you think you could teach what you know?
Well, the answer to the second part of that is yes. Available for a very reasonable price,
$14.99.
But in terms of, how did I learn those skills? There's an element of going through university, and analyzing documents to try and understand what are they saying and what's the key point here. Sorry, excuse me. And try and figure out what is actually going on, not just like what is it, what's in the papers, what do people say the problem is, but actually looking at the evidence, what's really the matter, and what actually are the solutions that will make the world slightly better. And so that was a lot of my work training, is to actually, how do you get beneath the surface to try and analyze what are the root causes of things, and how do we come up and devise solutions that work in the real world. And added to all of that, many years ago, I did a very small side career as doing some writing. I did some short stories, some poems, and quite a few sort of articles and things like that. And as part of that, I was in a writing group. I managed, ran a writing group. And what I found was that I learned so much about the structure of what makes stories work by just analyzing other people's stories and trying to provide them with good feedback. Because if you read something, it's very easy to read something and say, I didn't like that, or I didn't like that character. But to actually try and dig into what is it that makes this story arc satisfying or not satisfying, it's a skill that you can learn, and that once.
And that's very similar to, what I went through is Second City at our screenwriting courses. When you're helping, you're absolutely right, because when you're in your own echo chamber writing yourself, it's not as helpful as when you're writing, and especially reading other people's works, because number one, you learn the process. Because I think that before you do any writing yourself, that some people, and it's not their fault, I mean, there's people that are out there doing far more important things than I am. I'm not talking down, but they don't really think about, like, they just see the story and they're like, that's how it always was. They don't think about all the changes that were made. So I get that when I listen to your videos, about your videos, that you're looking at it and you are picking up on decisions that they made, like the Melisandre stuff, like you're conscious of that. And you want to know why? Because the same reason I'm assuming, I'm not telling you why, hold on. I believe that's the same reason I'm aware of it, is because I think back of being in a writing room and looking at somebody's script and saying, well, now why is Sharon doing this? This to me doesn't fit what she was doing before. Where are you going with this? So when you see the process, I think that obviously you appreciate it a lot more, but you also are better at picking up on things, because for damn sure after those hours of writing that you are putting things in there, and the things that get in there, they stay in there, are in there for a damn reason. You know what I mean? So it's like these choices that are made. I did writing, I did acting, I did some debating. It allows you to look at the process in a far deeper way, because I think that a lot of people, it's just like a conclusion they come to, that this story is the way it is and it's always been that way. You know what I mean? That they don't think about the and again, there was people going to school getting their MBA when I was, going for my screenwriting courses, which led me to be a club DJ for 10 years and now doing finance online in this. But, I think that it's the writer in you, and, that allows you to obviously identify these issues. And I love how you ask the question yourself, you just don't go with what and write about it. And I think that shows like Game of Thrones are definitely, they lend themselves to theory crafting, and that can be silly, but it can also be fun. The interpretation of the prophecies and stuff like that. Like, in my opinion, I don't give any credence to the prophecies whatsoever. Like, I believe that the whole point of them is to show how destructive they are to people.
Is that the way that George R.R. Martin treats prophecies, in particular visions, things like that, is it matters what the prophecy or vision is. It matters a whole lot less than whether people believe it. it's the people believing stuff is what is driving the action. As you said about Cersei believing the prophecy from Maggie the Frog, that was what drove the action. Whether or not the prophecy is like a real prophecy or not is actually not the issue. It's the same thing with Melisandre. Melisandre believes passionately the things that she believes, and that is what is driving the action around her. Now, it's a magical world, so yeah, there will be some things in there, I'm sure, that will be able to see the future. That's not a problem for me, but I don't think he's using it as a validation for any particular belief. In fact, where I think we're going with, and this is a bit of a digression, apologies, but where I think we're going with the resurrection of Jon is that he is becoming, and George R.R. Martin has said this, he is becoming a fire white, which means that instead of having this battle of the undead army of baddies against this great and righteous army of the living led by Azor Ahai, we've actually
led by a dead person.
Yeah, we've got an army of dead people facing another army of some of them are dead as well. And actually, the issue is this is the Song of Ice and Fire. These are the two forces which are battering humanity from either side. And humanity is not going to be safe until both of those forces are somehow stopped as well. And this is what makes the world of Westeros, of Planetos, it makes it seem real, because these things have emerged seemingly from the world that there is. And so the elements, the geography has created the cultures have created the characters that we have, and it's the characters who drive the action. And that's the way that he's created a bottom-up world that allows the characters to seem really real, because you can see that they're coming from their culture, as well as just having their own personal desires and loves and hates and all the rest of it.
Do you think that the stories are so good because he builds such? Because I do believe that George is a little bit better of a world builder than a storyteller, and he is obviously one of the best to ever live. But I think that he builds these vast worlds and even universes with his other books, and he gets so caught up in the complexity of it sometimes that he writes himself into a corner in these beautiful worlds. But do you think that he is a better world builder than a actual storyteller? I mean, even the most hardcore book fans would usually agree that the Essos storyline is kind of a shit show.
I think that his greatest ability is the character. He creates a character-driven, and this is true for almost all good fiction, it's character-driven action. And that, for me, is what is the beauty of his writing, is that you believe those characters, you know what those characters are likely to be doing in certain scenarios, and yet the characters are still changing over time. And that's really quite a hard thing to nail, because it's very easy to create a character that is the same all the time. But he creates characters that you believe in and understand completely, who then slowly morph as a result of the things that they do because of who they are, to become a slightly different person. So Jaime is the classic example. You can see exactly why he is the character that he is to start with, because of the upbringing he's had, because of the father he's had, because of the family he's got, because of the privilege that he's had in every single aspect of his life. You can see that and you can understand it. And that drives his action. But then what he does because of who he is puts him in situations that slowly changes him and changes his perspective. This is more, I think, perhaps in the books than in the show, but
so much better in the books.
The show has sort of caught up now, and he is a different person, and you believe that completely because he has been driving what's happening because of his own character.
And he's a real person. And I mean, because a lot of people give, I think, too much credit to the disabilities that George, yes, obviously he utilizes disability to create empathy, but it's so much better than that. These people are so complicated that once we stop hating Jaime and we start to like him, we still aren't all okay. He doesn't just do 360 flips. He writes human beings. and he does it in a high fantasy backdrop, which is so intriguing. He takes these characters and he yes, you're right, you understand why they would be like that. You still don't forgive Jaime at any point for pushing Bran off a window or justify his, incest with his sister. But you can learn, just like in real life, maybe a family member or friend, you know what I mean? There's people that have wronged you, there's people that, have hurt you, and you can still find a way to love those people. It doesn't mean that they're, absolved of everything they've done wrong. I think that's it. It's that whole aspect of it's not cut and dry. It is the whole aspect that this is a real person, and then that makes you feel for them. And you're so right about, injecting the real world aspects into it, because I mean, what made Batman Begins a little bit off, but so appealing to people at first is because they made it kind of seem like, for the most part, that Batman could really be a person, like it was a revamp of it. They showed some training. Silly. It's very silly still, but it was still, at that point, it was like, oh, wait a minute, Batman could really be a person. So it's the same thing. It's like, there's all this high fantasy stuff going on, but there's also like, he obviously wanted to know why you never saw hobbits, doing the deed to make more hobbits. So he injected these real world, actions into this fantasy world. And he also just didn't do the 360 turn. Jaime didn't get his hand cut off and just then he just didn't cry and apologize for everything he did. Yes, you hear the story after, of he's being more honest with people, because he's just kind of, he's not hiding behind that sword hand anymore. He doesn't feel it necessary to put up that, facade. So his guard is down, but you can see his point. That's what I was talking about earlier. Seeing other people's points, even though how evil you might view them, is so important, and it humanizes them. And it's just such a brilliant way to tell a story. And he just takes everything you think should happen, like Dany being taken and essentially raped by Khal Drogo at first, so you think that she's going to be this man-hating woman. No, she becomes powerful, but she still is, a very sexual person, a very, very much so into, taking part in these actions and enjoying herself. She's a human being. She still has her fits of rage, and I feel that as the story continues to go on, we're losing a little bit of that with people. Arya is just a fucking maniac. She's no longer complex. She's just certified nuts. Jaime's turn came a little bit too late, but it's still brilliant in the way it's done. And I think that it's going to be hard to really have anything that is similar. I think the reason I'm looking so much forward to Westworld is because I hate when people say it's going to be the next Game of Thrones. No, don't even say that. Don't try to go down that route. Westworld is intriguing for so many other reasons. It's intriguing for these bigger questions it asks. It's intriguing for the way that they are presenting this story in such a unique manner. It's not your basic killer robots versus humans. And it's got the same theory crafting appeal to it. It's your it's your highbrow and lowbrow. It all comes back down to it. It's your the entertainment that's always been popular has had your highbrow and your lowbrow in it. It's mass appealing. You could watch it and just enjoy the action, or you could sit and have hour-long discussions about it. But, I think that you've been with me for long enough, Robert. I kind of wanted to, pick your brain a little bit, because you are so insightful, and it's just so damn impressive that it took a, leap of faith to come onto this platform that we all know is so hard to make it on, and have done well for yourself. I think that you keep getting better and better. Your first live stream last night was fantastic. I look forward to doing some Westworld stuff with you. I thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug? Go ahead and plug it. Robert's channel will be linked in the description below, and I can't recommend this channel enough. And if you want any tips on how to go about creating, every time I do this show, it surprises me that I learned something. Do what is natural. Don't ask the question of what others want. Ask the questions of what you want. And there's pretty good chance that the other fans want that too. Robert, I thank you again. And if you want to plug anything that's coming up, let the people know. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, can I just start by saying thank you for having me on the show. I mean, I meant it when I've seen the show before. I really love the format, and I honestly believe that the channel that you've got with the content you're creating will continue to grow. It gets a lot easier the more you're known in the community. The more your channel will grow, and I honestly believe that give it a few months, you'll be looking back at when you had a few hundred subscribers and just not believing how far you've come. It's one of the best quality, intelligent things that are out there in our niche on YouTube. So thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. In terms of a plug, I think you've done it already. Please just have a look at my channel. It's in Deep Geek. As you've already heard, I look at Game of Thrones and Westworld. And we look in depth at stuff. We don't just try and go at the surface. We try and understand character arcs, stories, what's really going on behind the scenes. And I'm going to be doing 1 or 2 Game of Thrones videos each week from now on, and every Tuesday there will be a new Westworld video from now all the way through to season 2. Some new live streams. If you know my channel, you like it, do consider becoming a patron. Not because of the trying to get the extra money, but I'm really focusing a lot of extra effort into trying to create a really good, positive Patreon experience. I'm providing exclusive audio content all the time for my patrons. So please do check that out. Patreon.com/IndieGeek. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, we'll put the Patreon link in there as well. We'll see you guys soon. We are keeping that in, ladies and gentlemen. That was disgusting. We are keeping that in. Gain bowl, get hype, son. Smash that like button.
Get hyped.
Smash like button.
Smash that like button. Get hype, son. Get hype, son. Smash that like button. Bull get hyped.
Smash.
Looking at a video that you're making. Smash that like button. No, I didn't see you guys there. I'm Justin Thomas, and I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did enjoy that video, make sure to check out some of our other videos. Maybe right here, possibly right there. But make sure to subscribe right there. And we'll see you guys soon.
Spend my coin for sure. I'm gonna be myself, or I could be someone else. No one's stopping me now. I'm gonna skip my breaks, I'm gonna make mistakes. I just wanna feel alive. It's just what I do when I'm out, so